Hey everyone, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of my orchid adventures with me, Maria Young. So in today's episode, what I'm going to be doing is spotlighting an orchid that I think is so phenomenal, so amazing, so unique in its shape, so fragrant, and also so easy to grow. So easy to grow, in fact, that this is my number one recommendation to any new beginner grower. Indeed, it is that easy to grow, so easy to grow that I think it's almost impossible to kill this orchid. So indeed, I'm going to be showcasing this orchid to you because it's just so marvelous and so fragrant and so beautiful and is worthy of being showcased. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this orchid spotlight started like right now. And ta-da, folks, this is the orchid that I talked to you guys about. This is the very famous, very well-known Maxillary Atenafolia, and indeed, this is the most hardiest orchid that I know of, and I'm going to tell you all about why I think so. First-hand experience, guys. And if you guys want to see the journey with this orchid to prove to you just how hardy this orchid is, because this orchid right here in front of your very eyes is actually a rescue orchid, and if you would have seen exactly how I came about seeing this orchid, it was on the verge of death. As a matter of fact, I thought it was on the first class flight to orchid heaven. No exaggeration, folks. That's what it looked like, and you guys see it right now, right? If you guys want to see that video and indeed have it proven to you with your very eyes, go ahead and click on the video like right there. It should have a link right there right now. Just click, 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 and indeed you will be taken to that video. It's an amazing video because it's going to show you the in-depth, up close and personal of how this orchid grows. So indeed, very amazing. Okay, Maxillary Atenafolia, I have to tell you, is one of the most amazing orchids because as you can see, look at these glorious, very gorgeous leaves right here, which if you are not keen with the eye, you would actually kind of look at these leaves and think it might be a cymbidium. Yeah, it's very grassy in nature, but if you look very closely, you will also see these amazing pseudobulbs that have a tendency to grow upright, one on top of the other. And although this orchid is known for having the fragrance of coconut and is why it is called the coconut orchid, I somehow believe also because of the nature of the pseudobulbs looking like coconuts. Yes, indeed. I believe that also has a great symbolism to why it's called the coconut orchid as well. At least I would like to believe it to be so. But indeed, just quite a great growing habit on this orchid. Very visually appealing. So even when this orchid is not in bloom, just the visual display of this orchid itself is so very pleasing to have in your orchid collection. Indeed, quite detail for your eyes to bestow upon its beauty. Again, even when it's not in bloom. Okay, so to give you a little bit of history with me and this orchid, okay, like I said, we're like good old buddies. We go way back. I've shared some pretty personal things with it, and it has also shared some pretty personal things with me. I'm not gonna tell you guys because you guys would be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Maxillarians did that, but they do. But I'm not gonna tell. I promise. I already told you I wouldn't. I won't tell. I'll tell you guys later. No, I won't. No, I won't. Anyways, okay, back to the subject at hand. To give you a little bit of insight about this orchid, like I said, I bought this orchid. I bought actually two plants. And both of the plants looked like they were on the verge of death. I am telling you, I am not kidding you when I say that. No exaggeration by any means. I'm telling you, folks, it looked like it was about to die. The pseudobulbs were actually so wrinkled and so paper thin, I just believed that there was no hope. And because I believed there was no hope, I went to the manager and I said, look, okay, I like this orchid. I want to buy it. But guess what? It looks like it will not survive, okay? So please give me a discount and I will take these off your hand. And the manager actually said he'd give it to me 50% off. So indeed, I could not turn down that offer. And on top of that, because it's a big box office store, they offered this 100% guarantee. If the plant did not survive, you could get your money back or a replacement orchid. So indeed, I was not going to be at a loss here, folks. The deal was too great for me to turn down, so I didn't. Now, I took the orchid home and I gave it some tender, loving care. I did a deep hydration method on this orchid where I actually allowed it to soak overnight, and then for I think about a week or two, I went ahead and soaked it for about an hour, maybe 3 times a day, and again for about a week or two, and then guess what? It plumped back up, the wrinkles disappeared, and it was hunky-dory fine, back to its good old health. Now, with this in mind, going through that recovery process, I decided that what I wanted to do with these 2 orchids is to propagate. So indeed, what I did with the healthier orchid, I went ahead and put it in the middle of the pot. And then I took the other orchid and I actually cut the stems off, and I put the stems on the outer edges of the pot. Now, let me tell you folks, this orchid bounced back so quickly. And again, you guys have to see that video because it's going to really show you why it bounced back so quickly with its rooting habit. But it bounced back so quickly, and even within that year, it gave me blooms. Now, it only gave me 2 to 3 blooms, I think, that year, so it wasn't that much. But I tell you, in the next year, it gave me about 20 to 30 blooms. And this year, it is actually budding right now, and it's giving me, I want to say, about 40 or more blooms. So that's how amazing this orchid is. It is quite fast growing, so it's very easy that this orchid can become a specimen size for you in no time at all. So growth habit, really, really great, folks. And again, almost impossible to kill. My journey will testify to that. Now, one of the most amazing things about this Maxillary Atenafolia, you guys have to know, is the very strong fragrance that it does have. And it has that very distinctive, and I have to tell you, it does smell like roasted coconut. And I have to tell you, the fragrance is so strong. As soon as I step into my garden, you can smell the fragrance. And right now, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 6 in bloom. And that's all it takes. Just these little teeny weeny blooms give off such a tremendous fragrance. To all you fragrant lovers out there, you are gonna love this orchid. And it is one of the only orchids that I know that gives such a unique smell of coconut. Very, very tropical. So you're gonna get this very tropical looking plant, and also an added addition, the bonus, the highlight, is the amazing tropical coconut fragrance as well. How amazing is that? But another attribute that I also want to share with you on how fabulous this orchid is and how hardy this orchid is the fact that you guys all know that I live in Florida, right? Of course you guys do. This orchid remains outdoors for the duration of our very hot, scalding summers. And also, believe it or not, this orchid also stays during the winter time right outdoors. And I have to tell you, even though people think that Florida is so tropical, we can reach down to frost temperatures, and we normally will reach down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So indeed, it can get pretty cold. And this orchid right here is so hardy that it can endure and it can tolerate very extreme temperatures. So yes, hardiness, this gets 2 green thumbs up from me. Extremely hardy. Even with the culture care and culture tips, guys, I wouldn't go 100% with those tips because they can tolerate so much more. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. Let's get personal with this orchid. What do you say? And here she is, folks, my most magnificent, most beautiful Maxillary Atenafolia. And looking at her and how healthy she is, it is so hard to believe that she was once a rescue orchid. And if we take a look deep within the pseudobulb jungle, you will indeed see those pseudobulbs growing in their spectacular growth habit, one pseudobulb on top of another, indeed giving quite a visual treat to the eye. Now let's take a very close look at the very wild formation of these blooms right here. As you can see, it has a very distinctive color and pattern on this Maxillary Atenafolia. You're definitely seeing those spectacular spottings on a very creamy yellowish background right there. And if we take a look, you're seeing that very nice deep red, also described as a blood ox red. And if we pull this open right here, you're also seeing a very nice pattern there as well. Again, very wild in its appearance. And this blossom, these teeny weeny 1.5 inch blossoms right here, I have to say are very, very potent in their fragrance, very tremendous and very powerful. Again, giving off that roasted, very coconutty tropical scent. Now, even though the Maxillary Atenafolia is quite easy to grow, many of you guys have stated that it is quite tricky to get this orchid to bloom, but I don't believe that is so, folks. You see, the complication comes in when some of the culture tips are not quite accurate. You see, for this Maxillary Atenafolia, you will oftentimes read that this needs Phalaenopsis lighting. But I have to tell you, I keep my Maxillary Atenafolias right with my Vandas. That's right, I keep it with my Vandas, and it gets the same exact care as my Vanda along with the lighting. And as you can see, my orchid is blooming so healthy, very proficiently, and right on time every year. So if you're having complications with blooming your Maxillary Atenafolia, you may want to try to up on your lighting quite a bit. Now, to those of you that are brand new to the Maxillary Atenafolia, I will share with you some culture tips. Now again, I would not go 100% based upon these culture tips because from my experience, the care on these orchids can actually vary. The natural growth habit of a Maxillary Atenafolia is one pseudobulb that will grow on top of each other, and the natural direction of the growth will be upwards. Oftentimes, though, you will find that it becomes too top-heavy at the top, and it will actually droop, cascade, or even fall to its side. It should also be noted that one pseudobulb will produce a new growth of another new pseudobulb, and beneath that pseudobulb you will find that blossoms and buds will form right beneath. The bloom season on the Maxillary Atenafolia is early in the spring, and they can continue to bloom well into the early summer months. It is recommended that this orchid be kept within the temperatures of 50 degrees Fahrenheit and up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, during the warm spring and summer months, this orchid loves to be watered frequently and likes to have at least 50% humidity. But it should also be noted that in between watering, we should allow it a little bit of dry time as well. Now, during the colder months, we should not have to water our orchids as often as we did during the summer months. As a matter of fact, starting in November, we should start tapering off on the watering. It is said that this orchid can go without watering for about 2 to 3 weeks, so only once every 2 to 3 weeks during the cold season. To keep this orchid in tip-top shape, you should fertilize this orchid once every 2 weeks or even once a month, but this orchid should receive some form of fertilizing. The lighting that is recommended for this orchid is Phalaenopsis type of lighting, but if you cannot get your orchid to bloom, I would definitely boost the lighting on this orchid. That may be the problem. Okay, folks, and that is an absolute orchid wrap. Now you guys see exactly why I think the Maxillary Atenafolia is one of the most amazing and easiest orchids to grow. And if you guys don't already have one, like, oh my gosh, what are you guys waiting for already? I am telling you, this is an orchid that you are going to thoroughly enjoy. So go ahead and get yourself one. I think it's a wonderful addition and also a nice focal point to any orchid collection. And if you guys already have one, you already know how precious it is. So indeed, enjoy the Maxillary Atenafolia for all of its beauty and of course all of its glory. Again, folks, I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of my orchid adventure. And if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it 2 green thumbs up. And if you guys want to stay tuned to the latest and greatest orchid adventures with me, then of course make sure you subscribe. Also want to let you guys know I am on Facebook, just having a hoopla of an orchid time right on Facebook with all of my Facebook buddies. So you can join me there as well at My Orchid Adventures. And if you guys want to contact me via snail mail, if you guys want to write me or send me something, you guys can do that as well. And you should be seeing it like somewhere right down there. Yeah, that address right there. You can connect with me there as well. Again, I thank you guys so much, and you guys already know how much I love and appreciate you guys all. So with that being said, mwah, 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 and